Good evening and welcome to the Wednesday, April 15th meeting of the City of Worcester Zoning Board of Appeals. My name is Jordan Burke-Powers and I will chair tonight's meeting. This meeting of the Worcester Zoning Board of Appeals will be conducted in a hybrid manner with both in-person and remote participation. As a preliminary matter to tonight's meeting, I would like to confirm the board members and staff who are present. Board members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Board Member Cortez.
Here.
Board Member Barthagen.
Here.
Board Member Sacco.
Here.
Board Member Torcono. It's all right.
Board Member Torcono, if you're online, could you please raise your hand so we can make you a co-host?
Thank you. We'll skip for now. Board Member Abramoff.
Here.
And city staff, Michelle Smith.
Present.
David Horn.
Here.
Amy Beth Lath.
Present.
All right, we'll give him a chance after that. Before we start, a few housekeeping notes. Tonight's meeting is being live streamed from the City of Worcester website, and the recording will be available for rebroadcast. This is a public meeting, which means both that it is being recorded and that the minutes will be taken and published at a later date. The public may participate remotely by calling 1-669-254-5252. Again, that number is 1-669-254-5252, and the access code is 160-456-4634. Again, that access code is 160-456-4634, or using the link shown on the screen. Once an item is called, there will be a brief presentation of the item, followed by any additional comments and clarifications from members of the city staff, then an opportunity for anyone from the public to speak on that item before we proceed to board discussion and action. To manage remote participation during our hybrid meetings and prevent disruptions, all participants are automatically blocked from unmuting themselves, turning on their video, or sending chat messages. For remote participants who would like to comment on an item of our agenda, we ask that you use the raise hand feature in Zoom during the discussion of that item. If you're joined by phone, you can raise your hand by pressing *9. Again, to raise your hand by phone, that's *9. Staff will then call on members of the public one at a time and give them permission to unmute themselves. If you are joined by phone, you will then be able to unmute yourself by pressing *6. Again, that's *6. Please note that board appreciates brevity in your comments. To help with this process, we ask that all speakers participating in person to use a microphone and to please clearly identify yourselves each time you speak. And the first time you speak, please state your city of town of residence for the record. To help maintain an orderly meeting, please address all comments and questions through the chair, that's me, rather than directly to any of the speakers or applicants. Applicants should be aware that approvals are generally conditional. Decisions are typically signed by the board at the next meeting and filed with the city clerk the following day, beginning the appeal period. It is the applicant's responsibility to address any conditions of approval, and lack of doing so may result in delays or enforcement. Please contact the planning division with any questions. Any party aggrieved by a decision of the board has the right of appeal under Mass General Laws, Chapter 40A, Section 17. There are a number of items on our agenda. Being continued or postponed tonight, which I will read through shortly. If you are here for one of those items, please note that no additional notice will be sent to you before the next meeting. The best thing to do is to call the planning division the day prior to our next meeting to confirm if the item will be heard or postponed that night, as it is not uncommon for items to be postponed multiple times before they are heard by this board. I will suggest, for the purposes of streamlining, that Board Member Abramoff or Board Member Barnhagen offer to make any motions, and that Board Member Cortez second any such motions. In the event either member prefers not to do so, I simply ask that you identify another member to do so. All right, we have two items that are being postponed. Item number 3, 114 Lincoln Street, is a special permit and variance, and item number 4, 256 Sunderland Road, aka 262 Sunderland Road, is a special permit and variance. Requests for postponements to May 18th with extending the constructive deadline to June 9th, 2026. Is there a motion on the postponement?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
For this, I'll go to Board Member Bart Hagan first. Or no, is Board Member Turcono? Okay. Board Member Sacco, you'll be voting. On the motion, Board Member Abramoff,
My vote is yes.
Board Member Cortez.
Yes.
Board Member Bart Hagan,
Yes.
Board Member Sacco.
Yes.
My vote's yes. Okay, if you're here for 114 Lincoln Street or 256 Sunderland Road, please contact the Planning Division. Those are not going to be heard tonight. All right. First item is 417 Cambridge Street. And 421, let's take them together, and 421 Cambridge Street, is that correct? We'll vote on them separately, but we'll hear them together. Applicants come forward.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. For the record, my name is Donald O'Neill. I'm a lawyer here in Worcester. I'm here this evening on behalf of Gold Star Builders in connection with the property at 417 and 421 Cambridge Street. This is a request for frontage relief for one of the lots and for parking relief for one of the lots, and also some relief from the parking lot requirements with respect to parking in the front yard setback, and also landscaping and setbacks from property lines, things of that nature. Basically, what we're proposing here is to add 2 floors to each of the existing one-story structures. And that would allow for the creation of 4 additional dwelling units, 2 on each. And the plan is to have a shared parking lot, which is shown on the screen, that would service both houses. The parking requirement for 6 units would be 12 parking spaces. We have 10 parking spaces as shown, which works out to be just slightly under 1 3/4 spaces for each apartment. I think it's 1.7 as opposed to 2. The existing situation has 2 separate driveways, one for each building. And I think in this situation, we're proposing what I would say is probably an improvement over the existing conditions because there will be 1 curb cut with 1 driveway, which would be separated by a property line going up the middle. There is room in the parking area that would allow for vehicles to turn around and drive out onto Cambridge Street so that they would be, driving out, not backing out. I think particularly with respect to 421, the way that that's set up now is the only way that they can get out is to back into Cambridge Street. So it's our contention basically that this is, even though there are additional units that are being added, it's superior in terms of safety over what currently exists. And again, you're reducing the number of driveway curb cuts with this proposal. The relief itself is somewhat limited. This property has, one lot has 9,000 square feet. The other one has 9,394 square feet. The area requirement in an RG5 for a 3-family dwelling is 7,000 square feet. So we actually have an excess of 4,394 square feet. Regarding frontage, we've got a combined frontage of 110 feet of frontage. As presently configured, each of the units has 55 feet of frontage. So if we were taking them separate, it would be 5 feet of relief for each unit. What was requested of us through this process was there's the jog in the property line that currently exists, and what staff had recommended and requested is that we straighten that out so that it would be easier to separate basically to the right, parking on the right and then parking on the left. And if you were in just so there was no confusion on that. So the end result of that is we would shift that line back over so that 421 would have 60 feet of frontage, which meets the frontage requirement, and 417 would need 10 feet of relief as opposed to 5 feet of relief, just because the property line has changed. But for all intents and purposes, we've got 110 feet of frontage, and it's just the way that it's configured. We have provided also, if you look at the screen, there are 9 spaces which are in the center of the property. And there's one additional space that is up closer to the house that is accessed over a right-of-way, which the applicant has adjacent to the property. And that is entirely on the lot, and as such can be counted as one of our spaces. And the staff did ask us to landscape the area adjacent to it, which is currently paved. We don't actually own the strip of land, which is sort of a triangle in the left-hand corner. So we don't really have any ability to make any changes there, but the area that we do have absolute control over will be landscaped in that location that's shown in the crosshatch area. I have reviewed staff's comments on page 4 and 5, and the waivers that are also listed on page 4 and 5. And I would request the waivers and have no objection to the comments. I know that there was, and you've probably seen it, a letter from the Condominium Association raising certain points with respect to this application. And what I would say is that we are not encroaching in any way upon the open space area of the condominium. There is a property line there, and we're not proposing to do anything that we feel would impact that in any way. I think, as I explained initially, in my mind, the parking that's being proposed, it's a controlled situation designed by an engineer. It's not just something which developed over time. It does provide for a turnaround. It does provide, we're providing 10 spaces out of 12. So I think that goes a long way towards meeting the requirement, and also would be far from being a detriment to public safety. We would argue that it is in fact an improvement. So between the excess area that we have available on the site, the houses themselves are kind of unusual in terms of a brick ranch house on Cambridge Street, and that location is a little bit always struck me as unusual. And I think that what we're proposing is more consistent with the surrounding property uses. It's also a way to create 4 additional apartment units. And one thing that is noted in staff's memo is that these are going to be 3-bedroom apartments. And a lot of the apartments that are being proposed now, being constructed, are either 1-bedroom or 2-bedroom, which I think is limiting in terms of family situations for people who need a 3-bedroom unit. And so I think that is also something which should be considered in favor of this application. But I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
City staff.
Through the chair, this is Michelle Smith in the city's planning division. So in front of you this evening, you have one memo from us, which covers 2 different applications. So I want to reiterate what the chair previously stated, which is that at the end of this, there are 2 separate motions that need to be taken on 2 different cases. But because they're immediately adjacent to one another, we've consolidated them for the purposes of our commentary. So what you've got in front of you are the left-hand lot, which is 417 Cambridge, or Lot 1A. They're seeking relief on that particular lot of 10 feet from the 60-foot minimum frontage requirement. They're proposing to provide a 50 feet of frontage, but through the reconfiguration that was described by Attorney O'Neill, They're also looking for a special permit to modify a number of different pieces of the parking layout. And then for 421 Cambridge Street, so this is the lot on the right-hand side of the screen, also known as Lot 2A. They're looking for relief of 2 parking spaces from the 6-space parking requirement for that lot. And then similarly, additional relief related to the special permit to modify the parking and loading. This is an RG5 zone, so the use, the 3-family that they're proposing is allowed by right in terms of the use itself. The dimensional aspects are what they're in front of you to relieve in terms of the parking layout as well as the frontage and parking on the respective lots. So you heard the overall number of parking spaces across the 2 projects is 10. Essentially on the left-hand lot, you have compliant parking, so you have 6 parking spaces for the 3 units which require the 6 parking spaces. On the right-hand lot, you have 4 spaces where 6 are required, so they're seeking the relief of 2 spaces there for that particular 3-family. The conditions that we have proposed are the same for both. Essentially, we're looking for 3 additional trees to be located on each lot, 1 in the back and then 2 on the sides. We have conditions about the walkways being surfaced differently than the driveways, and typical conditions that you're used to seeing, including that snow be removed and not stockpiled in any of these required parking spaces. Within the parking layout itself, the reason for that relief, if you look the northern portion of the parking lot, there's these 2 parking spaces sandwiched between the buildings. Technically speaking, those parking spaces both need to be set back 5 feet from that lot line. They're accessed off a common driveway, so the common driveway doesn't have to be set back, but that doesn't actually apply to the parking spaces. So essentially, they're asking kind of to relieve that technicality because we don't allow for that type of configuration in order to keep those parking stalls. So they're asking for that on both lots, 417 as well as on 421. They're also asking to have parking located in the first 25 feet of the front yard. So we typically don't allow for parking in residential contexts within that first 25 feet, trying to create a buffer from the street where it's not all about cars. So you can have your driveway, but we don't allow for parking unless it's in a residential driveway. In this case, this is configured like a parking area. Cars aren't just parking in the driveway, so we treat that as needing to be set back out of that 25-foot buffer. So our memo actually incorrectly characterizes the number of spaces in that location. So on lot 1A, or the left lot, 417, there's actually 3 parking spaces, really 2 and part of 1, that fall within that setback. And then on the right-hand lot, lot 2A, which is, again, 421 Cambridge Street, there are 2 parking spaces, so really 1 parking space and then part of another that fall within that buffer. So they're asking essentially to have your permission to provide for parking in that location. Were they not to do that, obviously, then they would be looking at a lower number of parking spaces or an alternate configuration that would need to be provided. And then finally, for lot 1A, so the left-hand side again for 417 Cambridge, you can see this unique configuration of impervious area and the lot lines. They're definitely unique in terms of how they're proposed to be configured and exist today. Because of that shape and its configuration, we are looking basically between the building itself and the street and what amount of impervious is there. We allow for half of that to be impervious. In this case, they're proposing 60%, so about 10% in excess of what we require. So they're seeking to deviate from that standard through that same special permit that I was referring to. And then again, for 417 Cambridge, that 10 feet of relief related to the frontage requirement. So by right, in terms of density options, each of these structures, without reconfiguring the lot lines today, those could each be 2 units. They could each have an ADU as well. The ADU would have to be under 900 square feet. All of that would be by right. In that scenario, each lot would only require 4 parking stalls, even with the accessory dwelling unit proposed, because we don't require parking for ADUs. So what you're seeing here obviously is a little bit more than that, 3-family on each. Ultimately, they could provide for an ADU on each lot in addition because of the way the zoning code at the state level is written. So just want to be clear about that. Unfortunately, not one of those things we can condition against. So just relative to density, they could reconfigure the parking lot to get that 5-foot buffer, but you'd lose parking spaces. Again, so there's a little bit of a trade-off in accommodating that number of spaces for this density of uses. They could also reconfigure the lot lines and end up providing a 3-family on one lot and a single family on the other. So there's a variety of different configurations that they could propose, basically getting at 4 units by right. And then again, ADUs on top of that. We have a comment about changing a fence, and we did have two questions related to just generally their plans for managing parking on the two sites overall, and if the plan is strictly to have the parking on one lot be available only for that lot, or since we understand the current common ownership, if the plan would be to be able to share that in the long term. So I don't know if Attorney O'Neill could address that, as well as any plans for trash removal, if they would be using city curbside pickup, or if they would be proposing something else. This location is in a managed growth area of the long-range plan, so it is proximate to transit. So within that watershed, we have the plan that encourages additional density in this location. It's on Cambridge Street, the north side of Cambridge Street, just to the west of the intersection with Southbridge Street, park generally across the street. And then this area, generally right in the immediate vicinity, we have a bunch of townhouses, and then we have a variety of three-family uses and a kind of a mishmash of relic manufacturing, automotive uses in this area, which aren't necessarily consistent with the zoning, but are consistent with relic manufacturing zoning that used to be in this area, and also still includes some of the properties nearby. There's a littered history of this area, which included development of the neighboring property into the condominiums, which is noted in our comments, which some of you may recall from prior tenures on boards or on hearing about. So these houses were never officially part of that. They were referenced related to the previous land and how it was configured, but weren't necessarily part of that. So you can see here, basically the back lot, originally the lots that we're talking about actually extended further back. So they were all reconfigured as part of a different development proposal. None of those conditions for that proposal specifically or explicitly apply to these lots. There were comments that we received from the public, so just want to draw the board members' attention to that. Happy to answer any questions, but maybe Attorney O'Neill could talk about the parking management.
But before you get to that, I have a question
Sure.
for you. I just want to understand, because when I was out there, there's sort of like, there's this weird, it's already paved, and that's where the parking lot is where it's paved already. Is that correct? It's like, it's sort of paved, and there's like a fence out. Like, that's where I like
Yeah,
park,
I don't know
think.
if we have, we have the street view?
Yeah.
Yes.
It's a
So,
weird, so how much, so I had a hard time understanding a little bit of where this is going. So it's going up into the hill a little bit, and then also, and not in this right of way, but there's this, yeah,
yeah, let me try to characterize, and I'll have Attorney O'Neill correct me if I'm wrong.
okay.
So, right here, this is the left-hand lot on the
Yeah.
left side. So again, 417 Cambridge. So where that black car is essentially on the condo association property. So
okay.
this is this big wide curb cut.
Oh,
So
it's that like, that's that part where that sort of juts out, that's not this.
yes.
I got
So
it.
basically, the retaining wall, it doesn't follow the property line, but there's a almost L-shaped configuration if you look at an aerial view, and sort of north of that wall that runs parallel with Cambridge Street is really where it becomes their property. But there is a unique configuration of easements here for access, so you can see where Amy Beth has zoomed in.
Okay, yeah,
That
yeah.
yellow line is the property line, so you can see how the condo association property actually like stretches in front of and extends over like practically what the frontage and access is for this particular lot, but that is not their property. They have, and again, I'll ask Attorney O'Neill to correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding is there's an easement for access through the condo association to get to this one parking space that they have. And all of this configuration kind of predates all the regulations we had about driveways and setbacks and all that good stuff. So because it's essentially staying the way that it is, it doesn't need to comply with today's standards. If it were being changed, we'd be looking at it, but it's essentially just staying the way that it is. So that's that one parking space. So really where things are happening as part of this project is that driveway where we've got the cursor on now, sandwiched between the two structures, and that is being essentially expanded to create what would be that 10-space or 9-space parking lot. And then again, each structure having 2 stories added on top.
And I have one more question for you, which is, is the planning board seeing this as well?
Yes, I apologize. I neglected to mention, so they will need to, based on the overall number of units and the contiguity, they will need to go to the planning board based on that density. So they'll also need a frontage subdivision because one of the lots would have deficient frontage. So anytime a lot line gets reconfigured, doesn't have that, it needs the planning board's endorsement related to access, so.
That's what I thought. Okay, yes.
Mr. Chairman, the only thing was, I did want to indicate is that the engineer, Nick Fasandola from Level Design, he should be online if you have any engineering questions.
Okay.
You know, that he could address those.
And then Michelle Smith's question about managing the parking, like is it the intention that people will just be able to, it's going to be co-owned, and so people can just park wherever?
Yeah,
or are
the parking would be assigned
Okay.
to tenants, and actually, as indicated, there's 6 on one and 4 on the other.
Yeah.
So in effect, it would probably depend upon the tenants and how many vehicles they have, and basically for it to work, out of 6 apartments, if 2 of them only have 1 car, you know, they would have a spot for their car, and the others would have two parking spaces, but they would be assigned, and it's not just a free-for-all in terms of trying to find a spot. And I think we would make that, because the properties are jointly owned and would be jointly managed, but it is set up, you know, such that we have to treat them as separate properties. And we have the ability to do that by adjusting the property line. And then if there was anything at some point, a transfer down the road, you could retain an easement and so forth based upon the setup that we have.
And trash, is there a plan for trash removal?
Trash would be, they're 3-family each, so it would be city pickup.
Okay. Is anybody here for 417 Cambridge Street or 421 Cambridge Street? Is anybody online? Please use the raise your hand feature or press *9.
I do have a hand raised.
Okay, please just state your name and city of town of residence for the record.
Oh my, sorry. Oh my God.
They're trying to talk, but we
There
can't
it
hear
is.
them.
Can anyone hear me now?
We can hear you now.
Okay, great. Good evening, Chair. Thank you very much. Good evening, Chair, board members. My name is Adam Kurth from the law firm of Marcus Errico, Emmer and Brooks, for the record, located in Braintree, Massachusetts. But I am here and speaking on behalf of the Board of Trustees for the Gold Star condominium. As was referenced by staff, we did submit a letter to the board that is part of the record. So hopefully the board members have actually had an opportunity to review that and the exhibits attached to it with some pictures of the surrounding area and the prior permit for the Gold Star condominium. But I'd just like to speak in brief, at least, to talk about the board's concerns, the Gold Star condominium board's concerns about the project, and also their strong belief that they don't think the applicant, I appreciate Mr. O'Neill's presentation, but the board at Gold Star Condominium strongly believes that the variance criteria have not been met here. Among the Gold Star Condominium Board's condominium concerns is certainly anything increased from the existing properties that are there will result in some level of increase in traffic. Not only from the traffic from the increase in parking spaces here and the increase of people that will be living here, but as I'm sure the board can appreciate in today's world, that also involves the myriad of delivery vehicles that now come to properties where families are living, be it Amazon, any of the DoorDash, any of those number of things. That will also increase traffic. I understand from the Gold Star Board of Trustees that there is already significant in the area traffic in the area, both from the neighborhood traffic, and I understand this is also sort of a frequent commuter area, particularly with that busy intersection nearby at Cambridge and Southbridge Street. To the east and then to the west of the properties, I understand another traffic issue is that across coming over a bridge, there is a sort of peak to that bridge where it's that the cars will then come over and are effectively then starting to speed sort of down towards the properties, and that is sort of a blind turn there. I understand the Gold Star condominium owners already have a problem coming out onto Cambridge Street at times due to the existing traffic, and this will only increase it. I think that the changes to the lots could also potentially create other visibility issues and public safety dangers, because a number of the students or people that have children at Gold Star condominium have to go across the street to bring their children to bus stops. among other things. And then also not only concerns about the time, excuse me, during the time period of destruction, not destruction, construction, but there will be some destruction of the enjoyment of the properties at Gold Star Condominium during that time due to the proximity of those properties. And in terms of the, not only are they concerned about potential there could be damage during to destruction to those open space areas that were part of the permitting for Gold Star Condominium, it's also concerned about effects on privacy and enjoyment of those areas. You know, those backyards of 417 and 421 becoming more crowded, potentially with additional occupants. And they, they just could be with privacy concerns and their ability to enjoy those open space areas. I'll stop there just because, again, I've detailed that extensively in the letter that was submitted on the record. The other main thing that I'd like to speak about, in particular in regard to the variance criteria, respectfully, there was nothing the applicant submitted that shows there any real hardship here. As staff has said themselves, there are other as-of-right uses of this property, potentially that could even get to the 4 units that would be added here in different ways. Number one, and the stated reason in the application was to sort of maximize or the best use of the property. I don't mean to tell the ZBA their job, but as I'm sure you're aware, the ability to maximize profits on a piece of property is not a justification for a hardship in Massachusetts law. These 2 properties already exist with existing structures on them. We understand that they are used either whether it's for personal use by the owner or whether it's used as rental properties, et cetera. And so they are active properties that are already good use. It is great, and the condo board trustees are appreciative of the applicant's development of the condominium and their ability to live in those homes. But they have already, the neighborhood has already been enhanced by those homes, and they think strongly that an increase here in the dangers and potential adverse effects that could be created here just simply don't meet the variance criteria. And to the extent this was all land in common ownership at the time before the condominium was developed, it's also possible that those 2 parcels could have been used as part of that development or some other type of development where less variance relief was required. And if that's the case, if it's potentially that the applicant had potentially created a situation where there's a hardship here, that shouldn't be a justification for a variance. And again, I've spoken for quite a bit of time. The last thing I will say for sort of the other reasons and concerns that I've stated, the Gold Star Condominium Board doesn't believe that the special permit criteria was met either, just because those concerns they've raised outweigh potential benefits to the public here. And I'd like to stop there because I believe there's at least one other board member that may want to speak at some point to talk about their concerns from a neighborhood perspective as well. And I thank the board for their time.
Thank you so much. If there is somebody else online, now is the time. So please do use the raise your hand function. And you can also, there is somebody. Amy Beth is nodding. Yes. Go ahead and.
Brandon, I have asked you to unmute.
Hello, good evening. My name is Brandon Flynn. I'm a resident here in Worcester, and I've lived here since 2020. I'd just like to echo some of the same concerns that Adam has expressed as well, and that we've already expressed in our letter to the board as well. Just really want to hit on the traffic concern. Having lived here a long time, it's that the traffic congestion is pretty wild. You can sit here for 5 or 7 minutes at the entrance before you even get a chance to get out into the street, and there's frequently aggressive drivers on west and eastbound onto the path if you want to get out there, and you have to really push yourself into some uncomfortable situations at times if you want to actually make your commute. So there's that element. Also, just because of the gradient of the earth from the street level up to where the property lines are in the back, I don't feasibly see where we would store all these construction materials if the plan was approved. I can only imagine, functionally speaking, you'd have to bring those materials to the rear of the property line, and to get access that, I don't think those rocks are going to be moved from the exterior of the property line on 417. I also have concerns the guest parking spaces we have, those 3 spots, would need to be effectively inoperable to give access to the construction materials and vehicles they would need to actually take care of this construction. It just is also as well just the noise and the environmental annoyances. I think that this project's just not doing it for the vast majority of owners that live inside the condo. That's it for now. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much. If anybody else is online for 417 or 421 Cambridge Street, ooh, excuse me, please raise your hand now. Okay, not seeing any. We'll go to. Would you like to say
Yeah,
something?
Mr. Chairman, the only thing I would say is that I believe this is going to require site plan approval. And as part of that process, one of the standard requirements they have is a construction management schedule. And it would be a detailed plan, basically, to explain how it is that materials will be delivered, where vehicles will park. All of that would be covered through that process, and then they would be looking at this, you know, in as well as the zoning board. And not to repeat myself, but the only thing I would say is that, you know, we're basically doing away with the driveway, which is on the left. It's getting farther away from the entrance to the condominium. We're controlling the curb cut to one curb cut that does provide for a turnaround for the tenants. And I don't think that 4 additional houses that are accessing Cambridge Street, I mean, there's a lot of traffic on Cambridge Street. The capacity is there to deal with that, and it would be much better, I would think, if I was living there, to be able to drive out into it and then instead of trying to back out. So I stand by the comments that I made in the opening, and, you know, once again, if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Okay. Not seeing anybody else online? And is Board Member Torcono online by any chance? Okay. Just take note. You two are you're gonna be in on this one. So we'll go to board comments now, and I'll just kick off the conversation. I think generally there's plenty of space for this. There's plenty of total space on it. The request is for frontage and for parking spaces. So for me, there's plenty of space. We definitely need the housing, and this is a good place to sort of create more density. You know, I will try to not be too dismissive, but I do get frustrated when people say that we shouldn't build things because it'll impact on their open space, and people, like, you live in a city, we live in a city, you will have neighbors. Like, we just cannot not have development because somebody might see you in a city. Like, it's just not a good reason, at least for me, to come and complain. And so, you know, most of the other issues that were raised about this are actually not the applicant's problem. I would point out that you do have a city councilor, Rivera, and all of the problems that you've discussed are actually his responsibility, and really that's the person you should be contacting about all of these complaints. Again, that's Councilor Rivera, who would be the person who would be responsible for the public safety issue, the bus stop issue, the traffic issues, the not able to get out. It certainly is a tough up the hill, down the hill. Those are all concerns that are public safety concerns that are not the applicant's concern. Those are your city councilor's concerns. And so while I totally agree with them, they are all real things that are happening on Cambridge Street. I don't think we should not have development for something that's the city council's responsibility. And the last piece that was raised, and there was a lot of that in the letter, which I did read, and I do actually appreciate the really thoughtfulness of the people who have testified and around the construction plan, and I think that is something that is a concern, and so therefore the planning board, I'm sure, will go over that in detail to ensure that there is not disturbances in parts of the things that aren't on their property. We're not really the board that manages that piece of it. We can have a say, but generally speaking, we're not sort of reviewing, making sure that, like, things happen at a certain plan, a certain time. That's really the planning board's purview. So I will encourage you to continue to raise those concerns with that board should it move forward. And if you have any problems, as always, please do contact Inspectional Services and the Planning Division should this move forward. But those are really my thoughts on it, which is just to summarize, most of the problems that we see before us are not actually problems with the variance request or the special permit request. They're problems with how traffic and other concerns, which again are not ours, or at least not our purview to oversee. And the request to us is actually very limited, considering there's plenty of actual square footage on this site for the type of housing that's being asked for. So I'm a yes for the variance and special permits. And with that, I'll go to Board Member Bromoff.
Thank you. Through the chair, to staff, my question is of the by right alternatives. Do I understand that they could build two families plus an ADU, or just take the single family and one ADU?
Sure, through the chair. So any residential unit can have another accessory dwelling unit have it. So if it's a single family, they can add an ADU up to 900 square feet by right with no additional permitting beyond a building permit. If it's within the existing structure, as long as it meets whatever our most permissive of a variety of different setbacks are, which is, it's generally like up to 5 feet within the property line. So they can have, today, they could add an ADU within the building, attached to the building, above the building, but they can also have a second unit today based on the frontage and lot area that are available. So there could be 2 units, so the applicant could propose the same proposal, but instead of proposing 3 units in each, basically end up with 2 units total in each. And then in addition to that, they could still have an ADU. So you could have what's there today with an ADU, you could have a 2-family each with each an ADU. So basically 3 units in each by right today. But what they're proposing is 3 units in each. Those units would not qualify, the size of the units would not qualify them for an ADU. ADU is under 900 square feet or below. I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, but these are 3 or 4 bedroom units, so they're larger size units. So they would generally, you wouldn't find an ADU typically that would accommodate that just based on the square footage, unless the bedrooms are teeny tiny. So today, with what they're proposing, basically they could have, if you were to grant the relief, they could end up with 3 units in each, but they could still add an ADU or reconfigure the proposed unit layout such that there's a 4th unit because of the provisions of the regulations that we have.
Okay, so to be clear, without taking away their right to do an ADU in the future, at the moment, without any special permission from us, they can reconstruct those 2 properties into 2 families and then add an ADU. So effectively have 2 3-family properties with some variances. I don't mean legal variances. I mean just changes from what they're proposing.
Yes, so
Correct?
they basically, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. I agree with our chair, and I think the planning board will be taking a look at this in more depth regarding traffic and other issues there. But there's not so much more significantly that these extra units are going to add to it, so I can support this.
Board Member Cortez.
Through the chair. First of all, I think this is a well-planned development, and by providing additional housing in the area with the housing shortage around here, I think that's an improvement here, providing housing availability. One question I have is regarding the parking locations, and I'm going to try to, maybe I don't understand quite clearly. I don't see. I was looking at the map plan. I don't see. So one house would have. I know that one house would have 4 parking spaces, and the other one would have 6. So my question is, people who would be living in the house where 4 parking spaces,
if they need, will be sharing space where there is the 6 parking spaces?
Yeah, I mean, the 6 are on one lot, so that conforms 4 on the other, but if there's a space that isn't being used, it could be used by the 4-unit, on the 4-unit side, or vice versa, just to make it flexible, or you could move people around in terms of the apartments. But we are proposing assigned parking, and, you know, presumably it would match up pretty much with the way that the units are. I mean, the one that's on the sort of up close to the building on 217, clearly that's going to go with 217, with 417. But we would retain that flexibility so that if there's a space that's not being used, we could use it for the other property.
Okay. And so what is the distance between one, just about the distance from one parking lot to the other one? I'm trying to lead to a question whether there is, if people living in the lot with 4 parking spaces, if they need parking, they would move. That's why I made the previous question. They would have to go and park on the 6 lot parking spaces. Is there a pathway to walk from one parking space to the other one? That's what I was leading those questions to. Is there a pathway to move from people walking from one parking lot to the other?
Yeah. There's sort of a shared driveway right down the aisleway down the middle, and the property line is going to go right down between those. There are 2 spaces that are up kind of in the T close to it, and the property line actually divides the 2. But it's all going to be paved, plowed, and maintained as one parking lot.
I'm trying to look for a safe pathway if people will have to go.
It's one parking.
It's only one part. Okay, that was what I could not really figure
No,
it
you
out.
don't have.
So it's only one parking lot. Okay.
Right.
That mutes the rest of my question. Then thank you very much. That's it.
Yeah, through the chair to clarify, there is one parking space that is separate on the left-hand side where you can see the cursor on the screen, just to the north of that hatched area. There's one parking space, but there are separate dedicated walkways for that parking stall that bring you up into that unit, and then vice versa. There are 2 pathways that come down to the parking area that's proposed that go to either structure.
Yeah, so the parking lot has 9 spots and then the 1 spot. Board Member Bart Hagan?
Through the chair. I do share the concerns of the neighbor and butters about the traffic level here. I went out and visited this place. I think the road across the street was like Woodward. I think I was trying to turn around, and I had to wait like a couple of minutes, and there were just cars coming over that bridge, and you couldn't really see very far as they were coming over, and you would think you would have a gap, and then all of a sudden another car would come over and you wouldn't. And so it does, I could see the concerns there, but I also share the chair's thoughts on that is an issue that's not within this board's purview necessarily, and that's something that would be addressed by either at the planning board level or at the city council level. I do have a question. How did this unusual shape of this lot come about? Was that part of the process of developing the condo next door, or was that totally independent from it?
Yeah, it was part of the development of the condominium, and it was provided for access to the condo with that angling, and it also, I think, eliminated a retaining wall that otherwise would have been required. And this all happened, this was like 2018 or so. And, you know, the other comment about should have thought about this plan in 2018, they weren't thinking about this in 2018. It's something that is, yeah, it's like eight years ago, which seems like a lifetime. But this wasn't planned at the time, but that's what we ended up with.
Okay, thank you. And I think the key aspect for me in thinking that this, I'm going to probably vote in favor of this, is the fact that the by right alternative will produce the same number of units. So here, we're not, there's going to be the same number of families living in this configuration as would be available to the developer by right without having to come in front of this board. And in return for having to come in front of this board, we were able to have all of the conditions of approval and all of the other things that we're able to do here with extra plantings and trees and that kind of thing. So I think that tips this in favor, in my mind, the fact that, you know, this is no greater density necessarily than what the developer could do without coming in front of this board. So that's all I have.
Board Member Sacco?
Did we mention the waivers yet?
Yes,
Waivers?
they did. They asked for the waivers.
Okay, no other comment.
If there's no other board comment, I will entertain a motion on 417, or I'll entertain a motion to close the hearing.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
On the motion to close, and we're going to take them individually, so we'll do 417 first, and then we'll do 421. So on the motion to close 417 Cambridge Street, yeah, all right, let's do it that way. Board Member Abramoff,
My vote is yes.
Board Member Cortez?
Yes.
Board Member Barnhagen?
Yes.
Board Member Sacco?
Yes.
My vote's yes. All right, we're going to do this variance and special relief, special permit for 417, and then we'll do the exact same thing for 421.
Okay.
So is there a motion on 417 Cambridge Street?
I'd like to make a motion for 417 Cambridge Street for approval of a variance for relief of 10 feet from the 60-foot minimum frontage requirement for a three-family detached dwelling use in an RG5 zone, and a special permit to modify the parking dimensional layout and/or landscaping requirements, loading requirements, and/or the number of required parking spaces with the staff conditions of approval on page 4 of 10 of the staff memo and the waivers on 4 of 10 as requested by the applicant.
Is there a second?
So move.
On the motion, Board Member Abramoff,
My vote is yes.
Board Member Cortez?
Yes.
Board Member Barnhagen?
Yes.
Board Member Sacco?
Yes.
And my vote's yes. Is there a motion to close 421 Cambridge Street?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
On the motion to close the hearing for 421 Cambridge Street, Board Member Abramoff?
My vote is yes.
Board Member Cortez?
Yes.
Board Member Barnhagen?
Yes.
Board Member Sacco?
Yes.
My vote's yes. Is there a motion for 421 Cambridge Street?
I'd like to make a motion on 421 Cambridge Street for approval of a variance for relief of 2 parking spaces from the six-space minimum parking requirements for a three-family dwelling, and a special permit to modify the parking dimensional layout and/or landscaping requirements, loading requirements, and/or the number of required parking spaces, including the conditions of approval on page 5 of 7, 5 of 10 of the staff memo and the waivers as requested by the applicant.
Is there a second?
Second.
On the motion, Board Member Abramoff?
My vote is yes.
Board Member Cortez?
Yes.
Board Member Barnhagen?
Yes.
Board Member Sacco?
Yes.
My vote's yes. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Next up is item number 5, where is it? Yes.
Tyson.
Item number 5, 465 and 467 Lake Avenue. If the applicant could please come forward.
For the record, once again, my name is Donald O'Neill. I'm a lawyer here in Worcester. Here in connection with this application on behalf of Kathleen and Charles Trainer. This is a situation, it's on Lake Quinsigamon. It's a 15,358 square foot lot with 120 feet of frontage. And has 2 houses on it. We did look at the possibility of just splitting the lot so that we'd have 2 lots. And you do have under the subdivision control law, there's an exception which allows that. But my clients were happy to have them together. And with respect to 467, It's really hard to do that and trying to figure out any kind of any parking that would connect to that property. They also were planning to replace the house at 465 Lake Ave with a new structure. And we had a little bit of an issue because you can only have one house on a lot. We've got two. And the existing house at 465, it's, as you can see from the plan, it's literally right on the street. Now, Lake Ave has got a pretty wide layout, you know, so it's not, cars aren't passing next to the house, but it's right on the street layout. And, you know, is something which they wanted to replace that with an existing structure. And they've come up with a plan which provides for a new house that meets all of the setback requirements. It would be pushed further back on the lot. And in this situation, their plan is the trainers would be living there, and they have 2 adult children who would be occupying the second house. So the idea that we're proposing basically is to reclassify the house at 467 as an ADU. And in fact, we did go to, only problem is it's 1,400 square feet. But we did go to the planning board and explain, you know, what the intent was in this location. We also went to the planning board, and they approved it. They also approved the site plan. That was necessary because of the slope on the lot. So site plan has been approved, and an ADU status has been granted to the second house. And now we're left with a new house that I'm saying the house doesn't need any relief per se other than the parking configuration. We do have a kind of a horseshoe-shaped, normally you're only on 1 curb cut per lot, but in this case we actually have 2 houses. So if they had been separated, you would have had 2 curb cuts. And also there's typically you can't really generally go parallel with the property line. You're supposed to go perpendicular. But this is a configuration which provides for, you know, the necessary parking for this. It's not all that different than what's currently there. And it's basically, given the constraints of the lot, it's an effective way to do it, and there aren't really any other ways that it could be done without getting relief from the parking requirements. So it's a special permit just to modify the parking requirements to allow for the 2 curb cuts and also for the layout of the driveway as shown. And I have looked at the staff comments, recommendations of approval, and also the waivers that are listed on page 3. I would request those waivers and have no objection to the recommendations of approval.
City staff.
Through the chair, this is Amy Beth Leith for the Planning Division. As stated by Attorney O'Neill, currently on the property are 2 privileged non-conforming single-family detached dwellings on 1 lot. We are in the RS7 zoning district, and the applicant does seek to raise the existing house and create a new primary structure at 465 that will be completely zoning compliant, with the exception of the created driveway, and the structure at 467 Lake Ave will remain as the ADU. The applicant has applied for 1 special permit, which is to modify the parking and dimensional layout and/or landscaping requirements, loading requirements, and/or the number of required parking spaces. And then under that special permit, there are 3 specific areas that this driveway is non-compliant. It's in the residential driveway setback requirements, because the proposed U-shaped driveway provides a variable setback with no setback proposed at its closest point and 2.3 feet at the furthest point to the front property line, and it traverses parallel to the street in front of the proposed dwelling. And second, for the parking and layout requirements, because the driveway proposed is to cross the property line at an angle and run parallel to the street. And then the parking or motor vehicles in the front yard, you are only allowed to, the parking or storage of motor vehicles in a residential zone is not permitted in the front yard within 25 feet of the front boundary line, except for 2 motor vehicles in a residential driveway. And this configuration does have the potential for 4 cars if we dimension it out within that buffer area. The by right alternatives would be for the owners to leave everything as is. However, on conversations with other departments, there is parking currently within the right-of-way, and so this configuration would take the parking out of the right-of-way of the road. And there is, this proposed gravel area over here is currently parking that we are asking for them to resurface, and they are going to landscape between the driveway and the street. So we are going to gain some landscaping. I think that is all that I wanted to say. Yes, I think that the driveway is proposed to be 12 feet all the way around. So that is also zoning compliant with the ordinance. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Just really quickly, we got a letter from Fire and Comment. So the 12 feet width is, that's more than the 10 feet of width that they requested. But they also requested illumination. And did the?
Yep, I'm fine with that.
Okay, great. Is anybody here in the public for 465 and 467 Lake Avenue? Is anybody online? Please use the raise your hand function. Okay. This is straightforward. I think this is great. People should get to live next to their kids. That seems lovely. I have nothing else. This is pretty straightforward and should be, yeah, seems great. Board Member Bromoff.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I agree.
Board Member Cortez.
So do I. I agree.
Board Member Barthagen.
It's pretty straightforward. I have nothing further to add.
Board Member Sacco.
No comment on my end either, thanks.
Okay. Is anybody, if anybody else, I'll take a motion to close 465 and 467 Lake Avenue.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
On the motion to close, Board Member Bromoff.
My vote is yes.
Board Member Cortez.
Yes.
Board Member Barthagen.
Yes.
Board Member Sacco.
Yes.
My vote's yes. Is there a motion on 465, 467 Lake Avenue?
I'd like to make a motion for 465, 467 Lake Ave to approve a special permit to modify the parking dimensional layout and/or landscaping requirements, loading requirements, and/or the number of required parking spaces, subject to the conditions outlined on page 3 of 4, including the waivers.
Okay. Is there a second?
So move.
On the motion, Board Member Bromoff.
My vote is yes.
Board Member Cortez.
Yes.
Board Member Barthagen.
Yes.
Board Member Sacco.
Yes.
My vote's yes. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah. Can I get a motion for a 5-minute?
So moved.
All right. We'll be back at, let's be back at 6:45. Make it nice and easy. All right, next up is item number 6, 0 and 2 Tyson Road. If the applicant could please come forward, state your name, city of town residence.
For the record, my name is Donald O'Neill. I'm a lawyer here in Worcester, here this evening on behalf of M. McDermott Construction Company, LLC, in connection with this request for a special permit for a single-family attached structure in an RL7 zone, and also a special permit to allow for the driveway configuration not meeting the 3-foot property line setback for the driveway, basically for the interior units where they abut the, that line up pretty much in line with the 0 lot line between the two. But they do satisfy the impervious coverage provisions, and that the relief that we're looking for in those situations is the just setback from the driveways. This is one you might remember. We had gotten an approval just a little over a year ago, and there was some delay in terms of engaging an engineer to do the site plan work, so that the special permits that were granted did run out, not being exercised, and so that's why we're here again today. We actually have gone to the planning board. We were before the planning board last week, and they have approved the site plan that we're presenting to you this evening, and there were no issues at the planning board level. The lots meet the frontage requirement, they meet the area requirement, and again, it's just the bare fact that it's a 3-unit structure, and the fact that the driveway configuration needs the relief for the setback from the driveway property line. My client had previously constructed a duplex similar in style that's shown at the top of the plan that you're looking at, and I don't know if you'd gone out there to take a look, but it's basically same style house that we're proposing here. We have submitted architectural plans. There are a lot of windows on the front and a lot of windows in the back. We did get a request to provide additional windows on the side elevations. And the initial plan, I think that we had 2 windows, and we were requested to increase that, which we did by adding 2 additional windows, as shown on the plan. The staff recommendations, I've reviewed those. The only one that I wanted to discuss with the board is concerning the, I think it's 1C, which is a recommendation for additional architectural trim, or not trim, but detailing on the exterior side yard that faces Burncoat Street. It is, I'm sorry, it's 1E.
1E.
We had this discussion with the planning board as a similar recommendation, and they ultimately did not require any additional architectural features. And part of it is my client, there's a certain style in terms of the appearance of the building. It's supposed to be a farmhouse style look, and it's kind of a clean, not a lot of detail on it, but it's got a lot of detail in terms of vertical, siding on the front, horizontal on the sides. But in terms of the side elevation facing Burncoat Street, we actually couldn't really come up with anything in terms of how we could make that more interesting. The only thing that the possibility was maybe in the peak, taking out the horizontal siding and putting in some architectural shingles or something of that, probably still a decorative feature of some sort in that peak, but it really doesn't really go kind of with the rest of the building. So we would prefer not to. If the board feels that that's something that you feel otherwise and want us to do that, we'll do it. The other thing that planning board did look at is that there's 2 or 3 pine trees on the Burncoat Street side, which basically, for the most part, are going to obscure the house from Burncoat Street. There's 2 that are sort of closer to the intersection. If the board felt something needed to be done there, I was going to suggest we could add another pine tree if that would be necessary. Or we'll do whatever basically that you would like to see, although we don't think it's necessary. As I indicated, the plan has been reviewed by the planning board, and no issues were raised. There was some comments about the possibility of traffic situation at the intersection of Tyson and Burncoat. It's a one-way street, and we're on the corner, but the closest driveway is about 30 feet back, and the next one is about 50 feet back, and the next one's about 70 feet back, and all you can do is take a left-hand turn. So there are no cars that are coming in off Burncoat Street, because it's one way. More importantly, I think the Department of Transportation and Mobility looked at it, and they didn't raise any issue with it or have any problems with that design. So I would answer any questions that you might have, and then agree to the recommendations with the possible revision of 1E, and request the waiver on page 3.
City staff.
Through the chair, Michelle Smith again in the city's planning division. As you've heard, this is an application that you've heard, some of you at least, have heard once before. The board previously approved this same project back in 2025, and it's since expired. Subsequent to that, they've reapplied. They've also obtained site plan approval and an A&R to reconfigure the lot line into 3 lots. So those do exist today. The applicant seeking a special permit to allow the use, we only allow 2 units by right in the zoning district, so they would like to have 3. 3 in this attached style dwelling. They're still single family by definition in terms of our ordinance, but because of the density of there being 3 in one building, it requires the special permit. So you're here to consider that in this RL7 zone. You're also looking at a modification related to the location of the driveway, which does not meet the 3-foot setback from essentially the middle unit, which we see folks struggle with often, and also the unit that's closest to Burncoat Street, so the right side, plan right, and then the middle unit. So the driveway's about a foot and change back from the property line, whereas we would require them to be 3 feet. So in order to accommodate the requirements that we'd have, they'd have to shift those about 2 feet to the east. In terms of by right alternatives, as I mentioned, 2 units, so they could do a 2-family. 2-family could certainly have an ADU, or if they did a duplex, each side of the duplex could have an ADU. In terms of comments, relatively minor comments, carrying forward some of the comments that we had from the planning board. There's a comment related to the condition of the pine trees. There's 3 mature pine trees that are located on Burncoat Street. There was some question about their health and condition, and if they were to need to be removed, we have a condition that would require them to be replaced, not necessarily with a pine tree, but with some other tree with at least that canopy, which is somewhat unique given their pine trees. But there is also a comment, and Attorney O'Neill mentioned some concern related to the architectural comment. The applicant did revise the plans to reflect 4 windows from the original design. Still not a ton of visual interest on that elevation. Generally speaking, where it's a corner lot, we always try to see how much we can activate that. Again, if the pine trees were removed, certainly that would be more prominent. Understand that maybe the vinyl shakes in the upper corner don't make sense in this architectural style. They could propose something like board and batten, which you kind of see on the front, which might provide for additional design and visual interest as an alternative to that. So just to clarify, again, not something that we necessarily feel super strongly about, but is a comment that we try to be consistent about when we have a corner lot. So that is, I believe, E. And then in terms of other comments, you heard Attorney O'Neill also state that we had previously heard some concerns about traffic at the planning board. We did confer with our colleagues at DTM. They had no concerns about this being a left-hand turn lane and the driveways cutting into it. It's essentially a really wide road that they reconfigured to be one way, and they took one of the lanes that was previously the opposite travel lane, and now it's a turning lane at this location. So given the amount of traffic, they're not worried about the locations of the driveway. So just reiterate that comment. I'm happy to answer any questions that the board members have. Thanks.
Okay, is anybody here for 0 or 2 Tyson Road, aka 0 Burncourt Street? Not seeing anybody rush up. Is anybody online? Please use the raise your hand function. Okay. Just state your name and city of town of residence.
Ms. Hudgens?
Hi. Yes, city of residence is Worcester, and I am a part of actually this number 7 Tyson lot, number 7 Tyson lot. And I do just have some concerns regarding this property. Just like in many different ways, but just in regards to the zoning laws, my opposition is just like with, I mean, my concern is more with this variance in a way that creates. So 7 Tyson is a single family zoned area, and it's a single family detached zone area. So adding this 3 units that are attached go against the zoning laws, in my opinion, for number 7 Tyson, for Tyson Road. I also brought up my concerns regarding traffic on Tyson, just because it is a small lot to just add 3 driveways. With children playing in that area, this is a family-centered community here, and kids are walking, people are walking, riding their bikes, and just the increase in traffic that 3 more driveways will bring in are a concern. I just would love to know or understand more as to what the need of this variance is for. Is it more for a hardship, or is it more just because they want to overdevelop this area, which is a concern, again, of mine regarding those things I just mentioned. And we can talk more about, snow removal with the winter, the concerns that might bring in, or even just ambulances, if there is a need for fire trucks or ambulances come in. I'm just kind of, again, just to repeat, just looking for an understanding on what the point of this variance is for, because I feel like it might be a misuse of it, since I don't see it as a hardship, and I do see a very foreseeable safety risk.
Okay, thank you very much. Applicant, go ahead.
One other thing I meant to say is I believe the fire department came back with a recommendation too, just in terms of the sprinklers, which if you want to include that in the recommendations, I have no objection to that. And in terms of the neighborhood, it is RL7. There are a lot of duplexes on Burncoat Street, and there's a condominium development which is not directly in the backyard, but within sight, that has 17 condominium buildings between 3 and 6 units that if you look at the property, you can see it directly behind it. So again, we meet the area requirement, frontage requirement, and feel that, that this is an appropriate location, and feel that this would be an addition, an asset basically to the neighborhood in terms of adding this. And it's in no way overloading the lot based on the area that's available, in our opinion.
Okay. Yes, go ahead.
We do have one more hand raised.
Yes, please go ahead. Just state your name and city of town of residence.
Yes, I'm Jania Margaret Dougal Hutchins. I own the property number 7 and number 4. And my concern is that when the street was made as a one-way street, there was designated parking along the left-hand side of the street, which ends at, I believe, my property line of number 4. And then there was no parking from that line to the stop sign, which I think is about, and I'm not very good with measurements, but I think it's about 90 feet. That is the lane that will turn left. So my question is, with these 3 driveways having access to Tyson Road to leave their property, they're going to come out onto Tyson Road to that lane when it's free, when there's nothing coming to go on, and there'll be no parking spaces allotted for that frontage of the 3 units that you're proposing. So I guess that's in the form of a question.
I believe you're correct. Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so those lines on the road will not be changed. They'll just be able to come out and turn left when there is feasibility to do so.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, and one driveway, they don't meet the requirements for the driveway to, I thought I heard that in the discussion. One's 30 feet, one's 50, one's 70. Did I get that correct? From
Yes,
the
although
street back?
so the requirement isn't about how far away they are from Burncoat Street. The requirement is the how far away they are from the lot lines, and the 3 feet requirement from the lot lines. So the point about how far back they are from Burncoat was about the ability for somebody to sort of pull out. So 2 different, but yes, you're correct about the numbers.
Okay, so the transportation doesn't have an issue with that coming out? Or is that a different issue from your
No,
board?
that's correct. They believe that it should be fine based on the turning Tyson to a one-way street.
Okay, and no parking in front, they're just gonna be exiting onto Tyson?
That's correct.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you. I do see it as a traffic issue, but that's just from a resident's point of view. I've been in that house since 1962, and a lot of changes once it was paved and then made the one-way street, which a lot of people advocated for to curtail the traffic. But trucks do come up that street, buses come up that street, and I have a granddaughter that is has a chronic health condition that is monitored, and so EMS's access is really, really important, and people not to be flying by the EMS when they're stopped. So that's happened over the last 8 years, which has been very, very disheartening and scary, creating insult to injury when she had to be removed from her home to the hospital. So I guess I'm a little leery about, that street. Not that I have possession of the street, but I thought in the past when there was some point that there would never be a driveway onto Tyson Road. Now, I haven't had a chance to follow back on if that was petitioned to be allowed, but my understanding was that any units being placed on that lot, be it 2, be it 4, be it 5 now, would exit onto Burncoat Street, not Tyson Road. So that's my concern.
Okay.
One other thing too, the trees that you mentioned
Yes.
are tough. The other thing is I'm a taxpayer, a double taxpayer on 2 lots. And, you know, again, it's a different service from what you have purview to, but it's been a tough winter this past winter and for snow removal for the town, the city of Worcester to remove. But those parking spaces that were designated in front of the house were not removed, even though the parking ban was in place. And so it narrowed the road even more, you know, as far as just being able to go in and go out the street. So again, that's a service that the city of Worcester provides. That's what our tax dollars provide for. So, moving forward, if this goes through, as I'm thinking that that's the way people seem to be leaning, I just see that as a big problem. If the street isn't going to be totally plowed from, you know, post to post. And the trees that you're speaking about in there are extremely old. My son, who resides there with us at 7 Tyson Road, and his family, he's an arborist, and he said the trees are well matured and well past, and you know, we're just waiting for something to happen for them to fall on a house. I understand it's expensive to be removing the trees, but you did speak of something about perhaps adding trees to the property, you know, for decorative or whatever reason you want to place trees there. But that's my concern, that tree should really, in his estimation, as a licensed arborist, it should be taken down before it falls down. That's the end of my comments to the chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I guess I'll say a few different things. So first, for the trees, we are requiring, right now our recommendations is a 1-for-1. So if one comes down, it would have to be replaced. So we would keep the same number of trees. I don't actually know, I don't think we have oversight to demand a tree comes down, but normally if something is dangerous, they'll probably want to replace it. So we're certainly requiring if it comes down, one will have to come up. The other issue that you mentioned is certainly something that I'm familiar with in terms of cars not being sort of in the right place that they're allowed to be when snow removal. So I have 2 suggestions for you while you're listening. The first is the 311 Worcester is an app and also on the website, which allows you to notify the city if somebody is not complying with the parking ban. And additionally, you can contact the planning division and they can get you inspectional services who can also let you, who you can contact if something happens like that in the future around ensuring that there's both the plowing happens and also that people aren't parked illegally. And from the changes for Zero, for Tyson Road and so forth, I would just encourage people to continue to reach out if they're feeling like the changes that were made to Tyson Road aren't alleviating the sort of reduction in traffic that had been envisioned. And certainly there's other things the city can do from to slow people down. So I definitely hear that. It is, again, not necessarily our purview, but certainly whoever you contacted to get the change, I would continue to advocate for changes to sort of get the in place. Okay, is anybody else?
I have both previous speakers have raised their hands again.
Okay, I'm going to ask if you speak again that you, if only if it's a new comment and new additional information. Go ahead.
Ms. Hudgens, I have asked you to unmute.
Yes, I did. Thank you. It's not so much new content. I'm still unsure of understanding the zoning laws when a single family for that area is a detached, formation, not attached. I'm not necessarily opposed to these 3 units going in. I just don't understand why 3 has to go in. And could someone just speak to me about about these zoning laws when they're set up to be for this area, detached single family homes and not attached?
So just, I will let the city speak, but it isn't our, it's, my understanding is that there are attached dwellings around, I drove by it, there's a lot of attached dwellings, single attached dwellings, duplexes in this neighborhood and around, and that it's zoned for that, but the city can speak to that.
Yeah, through the chair. So this is an RL7 zone. So what that means, the 7 stands for a minimum size for a lot area, but the RL is residence limited. So it's not a single-family zone, but a limited residential zone. So what that allows is basically 2 units per lot. So you could have a 2-family, up, down, side by side. There could be a 0 lot line in between, or basically a duplex, right, where each side of the duplex or a 2-family is on their own lot. Once you start to add additional units, whether that's to be a 3-family or to allow for a multifamily, it's not that it's not allowed, it's just only allowed with special permission. So they're not seeking any form of variance, they're just seeking to allow that, and it's up to the zoning board to determine a variety of different factors and decide whether it's appropriate in this area of the city. So it's not a variance, but it's a special permit. Hopefully that helps clarify.
Yep.
Okay, and I'm going to go back to Janaea.
Yes, thank you. I just, the previous counselor that spoke said if, could he clarify, is that it's a 311 number to notify if there's any breach in the rules for parking? Is that who I would contact? Should this go through?
So my understanding, is it the number or is it the, it's called 311 Worcester is the, is an app in the app store, but is it also in the number?
Oh,
Through
I
the
don't,
chair.
I didn't know that.
I'm not certain because I've never actually called it myself. And
So,
and
I would
when
say
we
if you're
put it
looking
in,
for
but
a
I'm
number to
pretty
call-
I'm pretty sure that it is. Yeah, Mr.
What? It
Mr.
is.
Horn is certain.
Yes, this, go ahead, David.
Number
Horgan.
311.
You can call 311, yes, so that's correct. And they will also, and they will work with you to
Oh, okay.
fix the problem.
That's great. And again, you did answer my question about there was going to be no parking spaces at that line to
Yes,
turn left, I mean, that lane to turn left will remain as is,
that's correct.
which is good because there were, anyway, I don't want to take up the board's any more time, but there was a violation last week and there's no lighting there in which a car was parked. I took the license plate number in the lane that I was moving into to turn left. So I just foresee that. I said, oh boy, is this going to happen when this is all said and done and developed? And is it something that's going to, have to be monitored? So you've given me a resource, to
Thank you very much.
contact. Yes, thank you so much,
Through the
counselors.
chair, just to clarify, so it's 311 if you're in Worcester. If you're outside of Worcester for some reason, it's 508-929-1300.
It's 508-929-1300 if you're outside of Worcester, and if you're inside of Worcester, it's 311. And there is an app in the App Store, which is what I use to let the city know when that happens, and they actually, they move very quickly, I will say. They're very responsive, the city's very responsive. And if you still aren't able to get a hold of somebody, you now have access to the planning number based on the notification. You can call them, and they can put you in touch. So there's 3 different ways to access the city, and I will say from, as somebody who lives in that this happened, they're very responsive. Okay. I'm going to move to board comment unless there's other folks. And so I'll just say really quickly, I appreciate the abutters. I thought these are really thoughtful conversations and good questions. So just to answer some of the questions, my understanding is that you could by right, because there's plenty of space, you could have 2 duplexes and they could have ADUs, so we could have 4 units essentially by rights with some limitations. Is that correct? Is there not space for double duplex? I mean, there's not maybe frontage?
Through the chair, for frontage, they would have enough, but in terms of lot area, I believe that's a limiting factor, so they can have 1 duplex.
And one,
But what they could have is that duplex could be half and half, right? And each side could get its own ADU if they were on their own lot. So it's about lots. So yes, up to 4 units.
so it's, at the very least, there's plenty of space for more density that we wouldn't have oversight over. And this is a pretty limited, that already looks like a lot of the things that are there that we do have oversight over, and and the planning board has had say, and we can have say on. And so I think, based on those things, I am definitely, and because they are just special permits and not asking for a variance, I'm okay to move it forward. Board Member Bromoff.
Thank you, through the chair. I don't have any problem supporting this. I'd like to also say I don't have a problem eliminating option E, but what I would like to see is, given the age of the pine trees that are on Burncoat Street, plant one more pine tree now, and if either of those that are existing come down or during construction are damaged, replace those also. So if you plant one now and you get a few more years out of those trees, one of those comes down, there's some tree that's grown up some bit. Is that okay?
Yeah,
Makes-
that would be fine.
I want to agree to accept maybe not required it be a pine tree
Oh,
because they're so
another tree.
toxic.
Let's just say, plant another tree.
Yeah, like
That-
tree.
That would break up the
Agreed.
the end of that property, and yes, okay.
Yeah, I agree completely. Board Member Cortez.
Through the chair, yeah, we thanks the abutters for the good questions, the good comment, and in regards to the project, to me, the location and the area to bringing up a project there right now is an empty lot that basically I have seen people dumping trash on that empty lot for quite a while. So that closes out and actually is going to be a cleaner area by this project in the area there. And I'm also in favor of removing item 1E. I have no problem with that. I have no further comments.
Thank you. Board Member Barnhagen.
Through the chair, I also don't have a problem with removing Winnie. I like the addition, though, of adding one more tree on the Burncoat side of the property as a prophylactic, and then if any, and the existing condition would be if any of the ones that are there now are removed or fall down, or they'll replace, so that I think that would have enough of a barrier on that side to make up for maybe the lack of architectural detail. There are some windows on that side, though. There just aren't a lot of them. That's right. Yeah.
Board Member Sacco.
No additional comment on mine, guys. Thanks.
Okay. Yeah, so I would just say, I think we either change 1D or revise 1E to just say an additional tree, if that's city staff. Okay, with that, I'll take a motion to close.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
On the motion to close for 0 and 2 Tyson Road, aka 0 Burncoat Street, Board Member Bromoff?
My vote is yes.
Board Member Cortez?
Yes.
Board Member Barnhagen?
Yes.
Board Member Sacco?
Yes.
My vote's yes. Is there a motion for 1 and 0 Tyson Road, aka
Yes,
0?
I'd like to make a motion to approve a special permit for 02 Tyson Road to allow a single-family attached dwelling use in an RL7 zone, and to modify, special permit to modify the parking dimensional layout and/or landscaping requirements, loading requirements, and/or the number of required parking spaces, subject to the recommendations and the waivers on page 3 of 7, with the elimination of, or the change of E, remove E, revise the architectural plans, and replace that with add another tree.
And through the chair, just to clarify, we want the tree along Burncoat Street, correct?
Along the Burncoat Street side.
Is there a second?
So move.
On the motion, Board Member Bromoff?
My vote is yes.
Board Member Cortez?
Yes.
Board Member Barnhagen?
Yes.
Board Member Sacco?
Yes.
My vote's yes. Thank you very much. Good? Okay. Next up is 59 Pocasset Avenue, item number 7. If the applicant could please come forward, state your name.
For the record, Donald O'Neill, lawyer here in Worcester, here this evening on this matter on behalf of Real Estate Alternatives. And this is regarding this property at 59 Pocasset Ave, where we are requesting area relief of 500 square feet per dwelling unit with a proposal for a duplex two-family semi-detached structure under the zoning provision. We meet the frontage requirement. We meet all of the setback requirements. And also have submitted a plan with the application that shows that the lot has grades of less than 15%. There was, and you'll probably hear more about it, but there was a letter from one of the abutters that felt that the slope was steep. And in fact, it's my understanding that there's a 7-foot, it's a 100-foot lot deep, and there's 7% grade, basically, is what's on the property. In terms of the actual structure that we're proposing, the measurement for the height of a structure is at the peak in the front above the stairs. And I believe that height in this situation is right around 27 feet. The maximum height is 35 feet. So it's well under the maximum height and, in keeping with the provisions of the zoning ordinance as well. The plan that's shown in terms of the elevation is a little bit of an architectural rendering, shows it actually quite a bit steeper than it actually is in terms of the slope. And I understand that at the rear of the property, if you're at 27 feet in the front and you've got a walkout basement, add 8 feet to that, that gets you to 35 feet, which is still, within the acceptable provisions of the ordinance, although that's not actually where the height is measured. This lot is, the lots in that area are all based on a 1919 subdivision of the area. Some situations, lots have been combined so that there were 5,000 square foot lots, 50 feet of frontage, 100 feet deep. There's some lots that were 10,000 square feet and some that are 5,000 square feet. There's still a couple on, I think that's showing the assessor's records on the back side of the property, which is on Osceola. And in this situation, this lot was attached to an adjacent property at, I believe, 57. No, it was 55 Pocasset Ave. So the Pocasset Ave, based on the original subdivision of the area, would have been 5, strike that, would have been 3 lots, each 50 feet by 100 deep. So when this property was divided as shown on the plan, it had, prior to that, it along Pocasset Street, there was, would have been 150 feet of frontage at a 15,000 square foot lot. When it was separated from the existing house, the division was made so that the house has 8,000 square feet and 80 feet of frontage. And this property has 70 feet of frontage and 7,500 square feet. So I'll strike that, I'm sorry, 7,000 square feet. So the shape, the configuration of the lots is based upon the old subdivision plan. And if you, knowing that, I could have a copy of the plan if the board has any interest in seeing it, basically set it out so that the area is an RL7 zone. And I did go through staff's report, And I agree with almost everything that's in here. The only thing I do take a little bit of issue on is there was a statement that's saying this is, the neighborhood is almost entirely single-family. And I think the immediate abutters may be single-family, but coming up Pocasset Ave from Clark Street, there are no less than 14 two-families, right up to, starting at number 9 and going to number 39. That's a total of 28 addresses divided by 2 is 14 properties. And they're within, 150, 200 feet maybe of this location. So, but more importantly, the area is zoned RL7, and two families aren't allowed use in that area. The provision that we're showing shows the ability to comply with all of the building setback requirements. The building itself meets the height requirements. We are providing parking on the property, and basically if you go down further on the street, closer to Clark Street, the other lots all are basically about the same size as this one with respect to the area that's provided and the frontage that's available. I have reviewed the recommendations from staff and conditions, which are on page 3. I have no objection to those conditions, and there are a number of waivers that are listed on page 4, and I would request that those waivers be granted as well, and be happy to answer any questions you might have.
City staff.
Through the chair, this is Amy Beth Leith for the Planning Division. So currently on the premise is a vacant lot, and the applicant is seeking to construct a semi-detached single-family dwelling. The relief that they are seeking is on Lot 2L, 500 square feet from the 4,000 square foot minimum, providing 3,500 square feet of lot area, and on Lot 2R, relief of 500 feet from the 4,000 square foot minimum lot area, providing 3,500 square feet of lot area. This, as was stated, this lot was previously divided through an A&R process, and the new parcel would be zoning compliant for a single-family dwelling. Through that A&R process, the new parcel was given an address of 59 Pocasset, so if approved, the applicant will then need to request additional addressing for the additional unit. And the only other kind of staff comment was we're looking to see if the applicant is proposing any walkways in the front of the structure from the porch to the driveway, or from the porch to the street. And then the other comment that we had is this side of the parcel is currently robustly landscaped, so we would like to see robust landscaping remain / be replaced with the new construction. And I think that's all I have, so let me know if you have any questions.
I have a quick question that I don't think so for is there nothing's happening on 55 Pocasset, is that correct?
Nothing is happening at 55. It's already been divided. That parcel is remaining as is.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, there's people here, so I'm guessing you're here for this. If you could just come up one at a time, just state your name and city of town of residence, and address any comments to me, please.
My name is Peter Leo. I live at 66 Pocasset Ave in Worcester. We're neighbors across the street. Good evening, board. I just have mainly a statement. I'm asking the board to deny this variance. I believe there's no hardship here. It's a vacant lot that could be used to build a single-family home like that end of the street is. I agree with the attorney. Further down on Bocasset, there are duplexes, and they were built, I think, in the 80s. Our house was built in 55. My wife's family, we've been in that house since 1992. But they're not kept the same. The paint's pale, and there's no front yards. When you get to the end of the street, it's a different story. It's a single family, like you said, it's RL7 neighborhood. And this proposal will change the character at the end of our street, I believe, and set a bad precedent. I can appreciate the house lots are expensive. My father was a developer, but financial gain is not a justification for a variance. And I just don't believe that one should be granted. All right, thank you.
Oh, thank you very much. Now's the time. Just state your name and city of town of residence, please.
My name's Peter Yablonsky. My family member lives at 63 Pocasset, to the right of this lot, where there was mention about some of the landscaping that's existing. So, you know, I think, I don't really have to repeat the idea of the hardship aspect of this, but I think what is really important here is to look at kind of the actual structure. So the reality is that we're trying to squeeze every drop out of this lot, right to that 9-foot setback. And the reality is when they do this, they say that there's a 15% grade from street level to the back of lot, existing. That's fine. But when they do this, in order to carry that grade, to cover that foundation, they're going to have to put in some sort of retaining walls. And those retaining walls are going to have to return back down the property line, which means the entire hedgerow goes, a 30-inch maple, one of the only maples remaining up in that neighborhood, is going to have to get removed. The idea that the recommendation of the board is to bring back landscaping, I don't even see how somebody would even be able to access the yard. So you put in these retaining walls, you're going to either have massive staircases going down, there's structural issues, there's drainage issues. I mean, we're trying to squeeze something onto a lot that currently it just doesn't fit, and it's for financial gain. So the idea that you couldn't come in and do a single-family home and still be profitable in that aspect, or you could still do the semi-detached project, but do it responsibly. I mean, the reality of these elevations, yes, they meet planning requirements. But at the end of the day, like, this elevation on the right-hand side, so I still don't understand. They say that there's a 7-foot grade change. In order for them to get that basement walkout proper and still bringing 2 or 3 steps off the front street with grading and pitch, that doesn't work out, because the only facade that they can achieve that grade in is from corner board to corner board. Right now, as is, if I just measured that and ran the percent pitch, they're at 25%. So they have to make that up with some sort of something. And then with that, how do you robustly, I'm in landscape construction. I do this all the time, over 55s, developments, all sorts of different projects. And the reality is, it would be weak at best for them to try and get this in there. And I understand that those things don't necessarily wag the fact that this building fits within, but at the end of the day, it's just not right. In addition to that, the comments about the other houses, as you come up the hill, it turns to single-family homes. All the semi-detached, if you compare this to any other building on that street, it doesn't compare. And yes, it meets a requirement, it meets a standard, but it destroys the sense of place. And if you think that, the idea that there's an effect or no effect as per the application to the surrounding abutters, I mean, that's just not the case. I mean, I think, truthfully, for the owner, the lot's going to be developed at some point. But the lot should be developed responsibly. And we shouldn't be trying to squeeze in the biggest thing we can with the effect, so at the end, this is going to actually hurt property values for everybody surrounding. That's not fair. So, thank you for your time. Much appreciated.
Thank you very much.
Make it quick. Tim Hagopian, Worcester, Massachusetts. I oppose it. I know all the houses in that block from Ontario to Squantum. There are no two families, no duplexes. It's just from Clark to Ontario, and then there's a few more from Squantum down to Onondaga. It would be out of place. So I oppose.
Thank you very much. The answer is yes, but I'd like to just give people a chance online before, but then yeah. No, I don't know if there is either. I'm going to give them a chance to speak first, and then I will come back to you if that's okay. Yes, Amy Beth. If there's anybody online, please use the raise your hand function, and then we'll come back to the room.
Michael, please unmute.
Hello. Can you hear me okay?
We can hear you, yes.
Oh, great. Thank you. Good evening. I just have a statement. I live at 62 Osceola Ave, which actually abuts both of those properties. And I prepared a little bit of a statement. I respectfully appear tonight to hereby oppose construction on these two parcels, which both happen to border our property at 62 Osceola Ave. My wife and I are lifelong citizens of Worcester and have lived in the inner city of Worcester for many years and wanted to settle in a quiet area and used our life savings in order to buy our home here over 20 years ago. The main appeal of the neighborhood was the fact that it was a very quiet, peaceful area, free of the heavy traffic and noise that's associated with it. My wife and I settled here with the idea that we would live here throughout our so-called golden years after having raised 3 children. We're both retired and do really appreciate the relative peacefulness here on a daily basis. And we feel like the noise and activities involved with construction would certainly drastically change the appeal of living here. We would be subject to constant noise on a daily basis, with the only relief being before or after work hours. Furthermore, with the hotter weather coming, we would most certainly be restricted from opening our windows for relief, as the noise would be increasingly hard to endure, forcing us to run air conditioners constantly, which is, as you know, cost prohibitive. We survive on a fixed retirement income. This would be a hardship which will be very difficult for us to endure. I'm 69 years old. My wife is 71. I believe that it's quite a lot to ask of us to have to put up with what will most certainly cause a major disruption to our daily lives. When our street was repaired and repaved a couple of years ago, our house shook every time the heavy equipment was near, and to the point that a glass appliance fell off the ceiling. Similarly, when the lot next door had heavy equipment working there, our house was shaking again, which is not very pleasant to experience. Furthermore, the constant noise of construction will destroy the sanctity of our neighborhood on a daily basis, and please consider our mental sanity. The prospect of this constant disruption has been extremely bothersome to us and caused me to lose sleep by worrying about how our peace and quiet will be shattered if this was allowed. I could not stress enough the fact that this would surely make every day an unwanted burden on our senses. In closing, I do respectfully submit my heartfelt appeal to this board's good graces to consider not granting approval to this project, as it will most assuredly be a massive burden and will have a severely negative impact on our daily lives for the duration of such construction. And I thank you very much for your time and for your consideration on this matter. I'm done.
Thank you very much. If anybody else is online, just use your raise your hand function. Okay, back to you. Just state your name again for the record, but you have to do it into the microphone.
Peter Leo, Worcester, Massachusetts. I just wanted to say that I know there's a family drama going on here with this property. The board knows nothing about, and it doesn't matter. But we asked for, as neighbors of 30 years, we asked for first rights of refusal to buy this property, to keep that lot there with those 80-year-old trees. And I mean, so it's for profit. A builder bought it for profit. They didn't even offer it to us. So I just wanted to put that out there that, I mean, they're trying to stuff something to get as much money out of it as possible. And I agree with the chair. We need housing in Worcester, but we need affordable housing. And these will list for $500,000 to $700,000. So, all right, thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes. Amy.
Through the chair, I just want to make one quick comment. So there was no engineered plan that was provided with the materials. It was just the surveyed plan. So we do not have the existing and proposed topography. That's one of the waivers that we had requested. But if that's in conflict right now, you could deny that waiver for them to have to provide the topography to understand the actual slopes of the property.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that, so thank you for mentioning that. Go ahead.
There is the, I think the confusion here, and I understand it, is the architectural plans are not based on this lot. So that you've got this area which is very completely level, and then it drops down to the back. What you're looking at is a more gradual slope that starts sloping in the front and then goes its way to the back. The architect could have didn't design this specifically in reflection of the actual grading that was on the lot. And I think we do have some photographs of the lot. It's not a steep lot. It's not at all a steep lot, with the exaggeration that is shown on that architectural drawing. I mean, that's the front of it. There's the front, there's the back. It's adjacent to the other property next door. It really is not particularly steep at all. And I know that we do know, did check that out, but again, I think what it is the plan is confusing because it looks like it's a much steeper situation than it actually is.
We have not asked you to provide this, but do you have do you know how high 55 Pocasset is?
How high the building is?
Yeah.
I don't, but I do know that the building that we're proposing in the front is 27 feet high.
Yeah.
Which is still, 8 feet less than it could be. So and the grading is if you look at this picture, there may be some others that show it as well, but it really isn't a steep drop off to the extent there would be any need for, massive retaining walls or anything of that nature. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah, I don't have a, I guess when I was out there, I tried to, my like visualization of what this might look like, I sort of tried to visualize 55 as some 20 feet up, so that's why but I don't have any.
Yep.
I don't know if that's, I don't know for sure if that's accurate.
Yep.
And we
Mr.
didn't ask
Chairman?
to provide it, so.
Mr. Chairman,
Comment?
Yes, please go ahead.
Through the chair, so just for listening, it seems to me that the lot's very close to the 15%. There's no topos. I'm kind of in favor to see these topos, because the worst thing to happen on our side is to come out while they're digging a foundation, and it looks like now it's a disturbed lot greater than 15%, and I'm shutting it down to go back to site plan. That'll be a problem. So it'd be really nice just to see what those topos are prior, so that when the inspector does go out, we can see that we're starting out with 14 or 13 or what have you, opposed to not having that
yeah.
slope.
my client is here.
Yeah, please, go ahead.
And
Yeah,
he
just
knows more about this than I do, so
we
I
encourage,
think
just state
I'd
your
be
name and
happy
city
to
of town
turn over
residence.
the microphone.
Yes, please, just city and town residents, please.
Hi, my name's Nick Grandy, Real Estate Alternatives. I'm the applicant. The grade from front to back on the lot is 7 feet, so it's 7% in 100 feet. The house in the front is no different than any other house in the front. It's a two-story building. I own a house on Osceola Ave, a duplex. So it's a colonial-style house. It's not out of the ordinary, and the grade lends itself to a walkout because you got a 7-foot grade. The house is 47 feet deep. There would be a retaining wall, but in 30 feet, you can have 2%, you could have 2 feet per, a foot of grade per 10 feet, right? That would be 10%. So in 30 feet, you're going to drop off 3 feet. It's only a 6-foot, 5.5-foot grade from the road to the end of the house. So as far as massive walls, that's not going to happen. But the lot lends itself to a walkout. It's a 7% grade. I've shot it myself. Obviously you're not going to take my word for it, but we can get you the topo on that. But that's what's there.
Okay, thank you very much.
No problem.
All right. All right, we'll begin sort of board comment on this and come back and forth. I guess I'll start off with the maybe bad news, which is that this is an abandoned lot. So something is going to get built there at some point. So there's going to be noise. We can't stop some sort of building from happening. And so I guess I'll say something's going to get built, and it's going to be some sort of disruption. The question is how much, what is it, all of those things. So I guess I'd say that's the question for me. The other thing is that it's not going to hurt, nothing's going to hurt property values. Property values go up. I live in the worst part of Worcester, and I would love for my property values to go down because I pay too much for, they keep going up and I have to pay more in taxes. So there's nothing they're not going to go down. That's just not, it has not happened. I could endlessly talk about it. My PhD is actually in it, or I'm working on a PhD on it. It's not going to go down. So it's not the question for me is unless we think of an alternative system that isn't capitalism, somebody's going to be making financial gain. That is what we're here about. We all live in homes because we all made financial gain, and then we put that into our homes and into our pockets. So unless we're going to stop doing that, somebody's making financial gain, somebody's trying to squeeze in something. That's every single thing ever. So the question for me is not is there financial gain? Yes, we live in America and capitalist system. And is somebody trying to squeeze in what they can? Yes, we actually want people to squeeze in as much as possible. The question is, for me, is this squeezing in too much? Is this too much for the neighborhood? And I agree that when you go down, like what I was trying to get a sense of when I was there is it is single families in this portion. And the question is like, how much will it come up? Is this too much? Is this too much for what is there? And that's the thing I'm trying to balance is this too much? And so I think that's the overarching question for me. I have some questions about that. I certainly would like the topography. That was also, I think, I read the letter. I was trying to do the math. I'm not a landscaper, so I've just been here a while, but I was also had similar questions. So I think having something more official for myself would alleviate some of those questions. So those are some of the questions I have. It's like, is this too much? Is this, you know, what is the, like, how much is going to be in terms of, in terms of retaining walls, other things that are needed. So those are my questions that I have. And with that, I'll go to Board Member Bromoff.
Thank you. Through the chair, well, we always have to consider the by right alternatives, which is a single-family home and an ADU. So that's two unit. But by requesting this, we're allowed to review the project and impose conditions. And what would make me more comfortable with this would be to see the topography, the topographical plan or map or however you call it. And the other thing is a landscaping plan, a detailed landscaping plan. How's this going to look and fit in the neighborhood? So with those two things, it would be my recommendation to, if that's all right with the petitioner, to ask for a continuance, because I think there's a lot of questions of how it's going to fit into the neighborhood, and I think they have a right to expect us to do our due diligence, and they've brought up those two issues, and, you know, I've driven by, I've looked at your plan, but I can't visualize that well how the retaining wall is going to look and where the trees are going to be, and that nice landscaping, how are we going to add some back? And I'm sure, you know, the developer is going to, you know, probably do a nice job, but I think we need to see that. And so that would be my request.
I agree. Board Member Cortez.
Through the chair, listening to the abutters and looking at the project here, I also echo the chair's comment, and I put it in this in plain words. I think that the zoning right now allows to maintain that type of a character, the neighborhood character, by putting this house in here. It would change the character of the neighborhood, and I'm hearing that. So basically, it comes down that this project is too large for the lot size, and I think that it needs to be revised, the planning, and looking to see what actually really can be built there. And I agree, anything can be built there, something is going to be built there, but not this size of a house. And I agree with the like kind of a support, you know, that not because the individuals here, but then the character of the neighborhood.
Thank you very much. Board Member Barnhagen.
Through the chair, even before we hear from the neighbors, I drove through that area. I had a strong impression coming into this, and it's just been reinforced through this, that this seems out of size and character to the rest of the neighborhood, which all are nice individual single-family homes. I know that if you go to the next block over, you might hit some two-deckers, some duplexes, but and you know, with the walkout basement and perhaps the need for a retaining wall and just the sheer size of this, I would almost seem like, I know it's the same level of units, but it seems like a single-family home with an ADU would seem to be more in character even with the ADU, would seem to be more in character with what this particular neighborhood is supporting currently. And I do think it might stick out. like a sore thumb a little bit, and we want to be careful of that because that would ruin the nature and character of the neighborhood. With that being said, I think we do need to see more information to see how this actually looks. And the topo and the landscaping plan in particular, I think, are definitely warranted before any kind of decision is made, so.
No comment, thanks.
Yes, go ahead.
I have no objection to postponing and coming back with the grading. We'll look at a landscape plan and get some more information on what kind of retaining walls, how high they would be, that type of thing. And I think the only thing I would say too, in terms of, as I have said before, it's not that high. The other thing I hope that the board really has to also take into consideration is that houses are bigger than they used to be. So if you're looking at, a ranch house or one-story house or something of that nature, then a colonial is going to be quite a bit bigger and quite a bit higher. But the whole 2/3 of that street, they're almost all of them are two families. And we could get some heights on those buildings as well. And I think that they're going to be similar to what we've got. But I would request a postponement to your next meeting and hope to come back with some more information and hopefully persuade you that, that this can fit in that location. Because you could build a single-family house that big and put an ADU 5 feet from the property line, which would be, which would be a by right situation. So we're thinking we don't really want to do that. That's not what we're proposing, but we do think that we can fit in that location in a way that's not going to be overpowering to properties that are around it. But I would request a continuance to the next meeting.
Some suggestions to that point. I definitely think it would be helpful to have a height for 55 Pocasset Avenue, because I actually think you're right about them being roughly 2 stories. All the 2 stories are going to be roughly the same height. But I think the topography and some clarity on to support heights and those things will give us more clarity on that. So my suggestion for that is topography, other heights that you can acquire to get a sense of, and design, as Board Member Bromoff said, about, I think you have a good sense of it. Is there anything else that people want? Yes, go ahead, George.
Yes, through the chair. It's just something that sometimes we suggest. I see that there's a whole number of abutters coming out online and presently here. Perhaps a meeting, if they're willing to meet with you and work out something that is, reasonable, that's a suggestion.
Yes.
Through the chair, maybe one other thing is a comparison of how this proposed duplex compares in size and maybe square footage to the duplexes on the next block over.
Okay.
The height and size. Yeah.
Yes.
We could get the height on, was you say the existing house that this was being cut off
You mean
of?
the existing house. He's asking about other duplexes
Sure.
down the street.
Yeah.
Also, if you're able to get some square footage or height
Yeah.
on those, that would be helpful as well. For Board Member Barthagen. Yes.
Through the chair. I just want to be clear that our next meeting is April 27th, and I don't think that the applicant will be able to turn this around in that amount of time. So staff is inquiring as to whether or not the applicant would consider continuing to May 18th, which would mean you'd have to have us the information requested by the board for May 4th.
I will also put in the note that I won't be here April 27th, so that might complicate April 27th.
Okay. We can live with May 18th?
Under no circumstances should the board continue it to April 27th.
Michelle Smith is also saying
we
you're
have
not
too many
allowed to.
cases that meeting, and we will be unable, period, stop, to review the plans.
So we are requesting that we do it till May 18th.
Well, I would be happy to agree to that.
Okay. Is there a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to continue 59 Pocasset Avenue to May 18th with a constructive grant deadline of
June 8th?
9th, June 9th.
June 9th.
Is there a second?
So move.
On the motion, Board Member Bromoff?
My vote is yes.
Board Member Cortez?
Yes.
Board Member Barnhagen?
Yes.
Board Member Sacco?
Yes.
My vote's yes. Okay, we will be back here between May 18th. And if you have other thoughts or suggestions, as you can see, we do read the material beforehand, so I really do appreciate the detail. Please send them our way. We take them seriously. Thank you very much. All right, before you all leave, we do have other things we need to do. We have, is there any communications? No, we have approval
No
of minutes.
communications. We do have a discussion item. As you alluded to, Chair, you will not be here on April 27th. So we need to ensure that everybody else will be present on that day.
Are other people going to be present on April 27th? I have my final day. It's not exciting. I have presentations for class.
Tentatively, yes. Tentatively.
Tentatively, George's tentatively, so check back with George.
I have to, yeah.
Because we'll be close.
I'll get back to you soon.
Okay. We have two minutes on March 2nd and March 16th. If I could get a motion on those, that'd be great for our minutes, unless people.
Chair, I can't vote on one of them since I wasn't there.
Yes. Can we separate them? Can you make a motion on March 2nd?
Well, I shouldn't be the one. That's the.
Yeah. Oh, that's the one you weren't there for. Can we make a motion on March 2nd?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes for March 2nd.
Is there a second?
So move.
On the motion, Board Member Abramoff?
Yes.
Board Member Cortez?
Yes.
Board Member Barnhagen? You just have to abstain.
Abstain.
Board Member Sacco?
Yes.
My vote's yes. Is there a motion on March 16th?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes of March 23rd.
No, 16th. 23rd?
23rd.
I don't know when it was.
23rd.
When was
23rd.
it? The 23rd?
Sorry, hold on.
It doesn't. It was the 23rd. It was the 23rd. You're right.
We'll take it. Second.
Second.
My vote is yes.
I am also yes.
All right. For the minutes of either one.
Yes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I guess technically I have to do it again. Board Member Bromoff?
Yes.
Board Member Cortez?
Yes.
Board Member Barnhagen?
Yes.
Board Member Sacco?
Yes.
My vote's yes. Is there a motion to adjourn? All right. All in favor?
Aye.
We're adjourned.